Hello, everyone, and welcome to Introduction to JavaScript. At this point, you've probably taken a few web development classes, so I want to do a quick recap and talk about what have we learned so far, like in our web development journey. What have we learned? So I brought up this web page here from a really cool website called Glitch, which we'll talk about more in a second. So anyway, we have this website here, which is called Horsel, which is Wordle, but the only word it's ever going to be is horse. So let's use this to talk about what we've learned so far. So we've learned that a website, a web page, is a folder on a computer somewhere. So just like I have a documents folder on my computer, I have a pictures folder, a videos folder. Every website that you go to is just a folder on some computer somewhere. And inside of that folder are a few different files, and each of those files is going to help determine what that website does. So the cool part about Glitch is that anyone can use it. It's free, but also you can take any website that is being made. So this one's horsel.glitch.me, and actually see like the source code and the files behind it. So this is the back end of Horsel. And inside of this folder, you see a few different kinds of files. So you see these HTML files, and these are the ones that are really easy to tell from these angled brackets everywhere and these slashes everywhere. And they're really determining like the structure of the website. So HTML tells us, I want some text here, I want an image here, I want a block of space over here. I want this text to be a header. I want this area to have this class that we call app. Really, the HTML is like the structure, the bones of the website that you're developing. Inside of that folder, you'll also probably have these CSS files. This determines what the structure looks like. So while HTML tells us this is a header, the CSS tells us we want this header to use these kinds of fonts. We want it to be maybe center aligned. We want it to be this certain size. We want it to be offset from the edge. We want it to be this color. We want it to be that image like effect. We want it to do this when we hover over it. We want it to change a different kind to a different kind of a color. If it's a link that we've already visited, we want that to be a different kind of appearance. Anything that has to do with like kind of the appearance of the website, and that's what we're using the CSS for. In Introduction to JavaScript, we're going to be learning about this third kind of file, and it's our JavaScript file. It's the .js extension, and what it's going to do is tell us about the interactivity of the website. So if we only had HTML and CSS, we get these really flat web pages. So imagine Wikipedia in your head, or look at it on the screen. There's not much to Wikipedia. It is boxes, it is text, different, like there's different colors, and you can hover over links and they'll appear differently. This is all done through CSS, but there's nothing in here that's like jumping around. There's nothing that you can interact with. Compare that to Stack Overflow's website, which if you are beginning a development career, Stack Overflow is going to be where you spend 90% of your work time. This is a forum where people go and ask questions, ask programming questions and all kinds of, there's actually like Stack Overflows for like even like fantasy writing. Anyway, if you look at this homepage for Stack Overflow, you see like animations happening here. You see it reacting to the fact that I'm scrolling down to a certain part of the page, and then things like pop in. You can like click stuff and move them around, and the content on the page will react to what I'm clicking. So back at Horsel, the thing that the JavaScript is actually allowing us to do is when we click these letters, they appear in these boxes up here, and then maybe if we hit enter, it'll do something in reaction to what we gave it. All of this interaction, all of that stuff is what JavaScript does. It's what JavaScript is meant for. So whereas with the Wikipedia page, everything is very flat, and if you wanted to change anything about this page, you'd have to create a whole other web page. Here's a little pop-up here. This can be handled through JavaScript. Um, so uh, whereas Wikipedia is this like pretty flat web page, any of this interaction stuff, anything really about modern web design has to be written through this JavaScript. So this interaction makes it really useful for JavaScript to be used for this like front end interface design, things that you can click, ways that you can interact with the website. But as we'll learn later on through the unit, there's actually a really important use case where we take JavaScript and we start running it on the back end as well. So real quick, if you're confused by these terms, front end and back end, front end is the stuff that the end user. So like if you go to Wikipedia, you are using like your web browser, the Wikipedia page. This is the front end. The back end is like the database that feeds Wikipedia. All of the information that exists on Wikipedia exists on a server somewhere, and that's the back end. You don't really see it. It has to go through and be processed and put into the front end in order for you to see it. So JavaScript is usually used for front end stuff run through your web browser, and you're interacting with it. But there's also a use case for it in the back end. And we'll learn about that a little bit later in the unit. So JavaScript is the thing. It is the web development programming language. If you want to develop anything on the internet that involves things that you're interacting with, or really any web page at all, JavaScript is something that you need to know. So this forms our big three languages that you end up doing web development with. So we have HTML, which is like the bones of everything that we're doing. We have CSS, which is the way that everything looks, and then JavaScript, which is kind of the brains behind everything. I'm going to skip the next couple of slides here. We'll come back to those at the end of the session, and talk more concretely about things that JavaScript can do. If we were to like think big picture about things that JavaScript can do, things like interactive image galleries. So if you imagine going through like Facebook or Flickr or Imager, even like Instagram, things like these are image galleries that you can interact with. These are, it's not just pictures on a page. Things happen when you click them. Things happen when you scroll past. JavaScript can also do full-featured web applications. So, I mean, Facebook and Instagram are both examples of it. Netflix is an example of it. Here's one called Excalidraw, where you can draw stuff on this canvas here. All of this is done through JavaScript. JavaScript can keep track of users with cookies. So cookies are small little files that get put onto like you download them as you visit websites. And they're used for all kinds of reasons. They're used for keeping you signed into websites that you visited before. They're used for targeted advertising to say that people who visit Facebook.com for more than 6 hours a day tend to react to a certain kind of ad. And so we want to serve those people these kinds of ads. People who search for certain things on Amazon should get those ads on Facebook. And the thing that's tracking you between these two are the cookies. Interactive elements like tabs, sliders, and accordions. If you look at the top left of this Excalidraw page here, there's these three lines. I know you've seen them before. This is what's known as a hamburger menu. I don't know who saw that and said it looks like a hamburger, but it's called a hamburger because those three lines apparently look like one. If you're clicking things are moving around. If I can move this toolbar around, can I move that toolbar around now? If things are moving around, that's done with JavaScript. Drawing and animation, even games like Angry Birds or Bejeweled, they were written in JavaScript. A lot of times things that like games that started out as applications on like for web browsers, Candy Crush maybe, they were made using JavaScript. JavaScript's great for sending and receiving data. So this is things like if you've ever used one of those AI art generators where you take a picture and you put it into the AI generator and it gives you it, I don't know, puts a filter on it somehow, or recommendation algorithm. So if you look on if you go to YouTube and on the right, there's that recommendation bar. all of that stuff can be handled. All of that stuff has to get from your computer to the server. And as they're taking that data from your computer and putting it on the server, they're using JavaScript to do that. Anytime that you are interacting, that's the big thing. Anytime you're interacting with the website, you're using JavaScript to do it. JavaScript's the brain behind everything that happens that makes the internet feel modern. That's really what this image is meant to convey. But what I want to talk about when we're looking at this image is that it's easy to look at something like this, and then your brain kind of interprets it as this is a complicated process. And that's that's kind of where your thought train stops. But these complicated processes have like elements inside of them. And if you just take an extra minute and you look at it and you look at what's happening and you make your eyes focus on a certain section, you can get some greater understanding out of it. So for example, in this complicated process, if you look over here at the end, you can see like this camera and the data flowing between this camera and then this little picture here, and then this image of like what looks kind of like a phone here. What this looks like to me, if I were to interpret it, is that you like take a picture and then this camera takes a picture of the world, which becomes this digital image, which then gets put into this Instagram feed. And all of this, there's this loop here with this JavaScript brain on the computer. And so this little section here is meant to like kind of communicate that loop. I'm talking about this specifically because you'll do this a lot in your coding career. Coding is iterative, meaning you will, let's go back to Horsel, you'll see a big block of code and it will look extremely intimidating and you'll be like, I have no idea, and I'm going to scroll like this to kind of illustrate, I have no idea how JavaScript works or what to do at all with any of this information. But it has elements inside of it. If you just take a minute to slow down and look at maybe one section of it and think about what this section could mean. And that's how you have to approach code that already exists, which you'll spend a lot of time editing because that's what the job will end up being, taking a piece of code and adding to it. So before you get to if you look at this and you say like, this is too much information, you should get in the habit of slowing down, breaking it down into a piece, and then looking at it and saying like, what does this section of the code mean? Or what is a pattern that I can see? We'll be doing that a lot, and we'll actually do that at the end of this session as well. So before we get to the end of the session, I want to go back and talk about our textbook that we're going to be using through this course. It's here. It's called JavaScript and jQuery, Interactive Front-End Web Development. It's from a big publisher, a trusted publisher named Wiley. If you see books that are from Wiley, usually those are pretty authoritative to use. So before we get to the next session, I want you to go and read the introduction in chapter 1. Side note, textbook reading note. Textbooks are not like novels. They're not meant to be read from cover to cover. Instead, they're more interactive than that. People who write textbooks want you to look around their pages. They want you to get your mind into different headspaces, and they want you to like do like assignments and questions and stuff that they have written in there. They're meant to be more interactive than an actual book. But the way that you interact with them is different for every single textbook. So my textbook reading tip to you is anytime you get one, read the introduction. That's almost always where like the instructions for how to actually get the most out of the textbook will be. And if you do that, you'll get a lot more out of the textbook that you're reading. So read that introduction, read that chapter 1 before our next session. And then the other piece of documentation, the other like kind of reading assignment that I want to talk about is if you go to the slides and then you click this here on this What is JavaScript link, you'll be taken to this page for a website that's called MDN Web Docs. This stands for Mozilla Developers Network. And you'll spend a massive amount of time going through the documentation as you learn a new, well, really the entire time as you're a programmer. That's like kind of the meme, is that like most of the job is just going to Stack Overflow and documentation and figuring out what you're doing. So you'll spend a ton of time on documentation to figure out how things work. And this MDN Web Docs site is basically the best in the business for front-end web development. So if you want to learn anything with JavaScript or APIs or HTML or CSS, any of that stuff, if you find a link on MDM Web Docs, it's probably going to be the best. Like, it's really approachable. It's very in-depth. It's like interactive. It has really good examples. I appreciate MDM Web Docs a lot. So that is pretty much the end of what I wanted to cover in terms of really this first session is just all about getting to know what JavaScript is and getting used to JavaScript. But what I want us to do is actually get our hands dirty with it. So before I tell you anything about the way that JavaScript works, what I want to do is I want you to click. It's in the link, or it's linked below. It's another glitch page called Heat Factory. So this is based on a web page that one of my students did. So he made a game. If you click that link, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. And then at the bottom is a preview button. And if you click preview in a new window, you'll be taken to the actual game itself. So this is a game. It's called an iterator. So there's a heat counter at the top, and the object of the game is to get as much heat as possible. But right now, I went in and deleted a bunch of stuff and broke all the buttons. So right now, you can't win this game. There's no way to, if you click this button, you're never going to click it fast enough to gain heat, to get as much heat as you can. You're losing 3 heat every second. So instead, what I want you to do is I want you to go into the code of the page. That's what we've linked below. That's what's on the left of the screen here. I want you to go into the code of the page, and I want you to make an edit that you think will help you win the game. And what I want you to do is to get 1,000 heat. That's the objective. If you can get more than 1,000 heat, you've won the game. So remember what we talked about how it's easy to look at this and say, this is way too much. This is way too much code. I don't know anything about JavaScript. I can't do it yet. I just want you to slow down. Think about which of these files you might have to edit. Think about what it is that you have to maybe change inside of the code, because a lot of it will explain itself. And I think that all of us can go in here and look at it and find an edit to make that will help us win this game. Anytime you make an edit, you edit the code over here, and then you hit refresh on the page over here, and it'll already incorporate your changes. So give that a shot, and I'm around for any help if you need it.